Hello YouTube, welcome to another pre-season 7 guide. Today we're covering the Assassin rework on Talon.
Live and die by the blade.
For the links to our social medias and the timestamps for this champion guide, you guys can check out the video description. We do Riot Point giveaways at the end of every month, and we also do votes on which champion guide should come out next at the end of every night on our Twitter, so that's one you should definitely check out. But now let's hop right into Rework Talon's pros and cons. Talon is a very fun to play assassin with great AoE damage. As he is an assassin, he's got very high burst damage, and of course his ultimate brings high damage as well, but also has really strong utility. He now gets a lot of damage from its passive, and with his new E ability, he does make for an amazing roamer as well. When you combine his very strong roams and his high damage, he does have very high snowball potential, and if he does get kills, he can easily take over a game. Talon, however, doesn't really have a reliable escape. Sure, he does have his ultimate to go into stealth and run away, but that's generally something you want to use more offensively. Since he is an assassin, if he does fall behind, he is pretty lackluster and he really needs his items. He's not the strongest champion early on, and he does have some very hard matchups, so lane phase may be a struggle. For your Masteries, you want to go 12 Ferocity and 18 Cunning, grabbing either Thunderlord's Decree or Storm Raider's Surge as your Keystone Mastery. If you feel like you're going to need some extra damage in your combos, then take Thunderlords, but if you do prefer mobility, Storm Raiders is a great pick as well. Both are awesome options. I prefer Thunderlords myself, but Storm Raiders is definitely fun to play around with, and I have used it from time to time. For my rune setup, I like to go for Lethality Reds, Scaling Health Yellows, Magic Resist Blues, and Attack Damage Quints. You could go for Lethality Quints as well, but I do prefer having some attack damage just to make my harass a little bit harder in that early game, and last hitting of course will be a lot easier as well. We have a few different options for our summoner spells, but first you'll want to make sure you grab Flash. It's great when used as an escape tool, but it's also great if you do use it to chase an enemy running away to help finish that kill. Ignite is then one great option for our second summoner spell. It's great for adding some extra true damage into our combo. When we combine it with our Blade's End, we actually do a lot of damage when somebody is running away. Exhaust is a pretty decent pick as well if we are against another assassin to help stop their damage, but it's not something I take too often. If I'm looking for even more mobility, I will take Ghost, and I actually used it in this gameplay. It'll add a ton of mobility and help us get onto those squishy targets, but I wouldn't take Storm Raider Surge and Ghost. That's kind of overkill for our movement speed. Now let's kick off our abilities with our passive, Blade's End. Talon's abilities wound enemy champions and epic monsters every time they deal damage, lasting 6 seconds and stacking up to 3 times. Talon's basic attacks against enemies with 3 wounds consumes them, causing them to bleed for 60 to 160 based on level, plus 200% bonus AD physical damage over 2 seconds. So that's a really high AD ratio, and we have to try to get it off as often as we can. We can combo the 2 hits of our Rake with our Q to make sure that goes off, or we could just simply use our ultimate. Get it off as much as you can in lane phase, because it will deal a lot of damage. Now let's move on to our Q ability, Noxian Diplomacy. Talon dashes onto his target and strikes them, dealing physical damage. Noxian Diplomacy has a different effect if his target is nearby. So, if it is a nearby target, Talon skewers his target, dealing 150% of Noxian Diplomacy's normal damage. That is further increased by critical strike damage. If Noxian Diplomacy kills its target, Talon then heals for between 17 and 51 based on level, and 50% of its cooldown is refunded. This is a very strong ability since it can be used as a gap closer, but if you can, you want to use it when you are in melee range for that extra damage. This can still be used as an auto attack reset, so make sure you follow it right after an auto attack to increase your damage. Now let's look at your primary harass tool, Rake. Talon sends out a volley of daggers, dealing physical damage to every enemy they pass through. The daggers linger for a short duration before flying back to Talon, dealing physical damage to every enemy they pass through and slowing them for 1 second. So this is pretty much the same as the old Rake. It is your bread and butter skill in that lane phase, and you can use it to farm waves or just to poke the enemy champion. Max this skill first, as that damage and slow is great, and it's a really solid way to get on top of an enemy champion. Now your E ability, which is completely new, Assassin's Path. Should have been called Parkour, but we'll settle for this name. Talon dashes over the target structure or piece of terrain with the dash's speed based on his own movement speed. Talon can then not cast Assassin's Path on the same piece of terrain for a set duration. It's actually a pretty long duration at level 1 at 160. So this tool is part of the reason you have such great roaming potential now, because you can jump over walls and get to lanes with really weird paths. You can then invade into the enemy jungle and be very safe at the same time, because if somebody comes towards you, you can just jump over an entire wall. It's a very solid ability, but we only need 1 point early on. Now we arrive at your ultimate, which is the exact same, Shadow Assault. Talon throws out a ring of blades, dealing physical damage to all enemies they pass through, and gains invisibility for 2.5 seconds, and gaining bonus movement speed for that duration as well. When Talon emerges from invisibility, the blades converge to his location, dealing the same physical damage to all enemies they pass through. Breaking invisibility with a basic attack or Noxian Diplomacy causes the blades to converge to his target instead. So this is a great thing to do because that will ensure that this ultimate will actually hit your target. It's really great when you use it in team fights because you will gain stealth, you can reposition, and that bonus movement speed can get you to a squishy target. Of course, if you are getting ganked as well, you can pop this so you will go stealth and then you can run away with all of that bonus movement speed. It's a pretty damn solid ultimate. For our skill order, we want to put a point into our ultimate whenever we can at 6, 11, and 16. Then we focus on maxing our W first, as it does have a lot of nice harassment from range, and of course it can clear up minion waves. Then we move on to our Q, as it does a lot of damage and has a pretty decent ratio, and we save our E for last as it does no damage at all, but we do get one early point, so we can hop over walls. For our first combo, we have our lane harassment combo. We first want to hit the enemy with both parts of our rake, and then hop onto the target with our Noxian Diplomacy. Then we follow up with our auto attack to apply Blade's End. I also like to use Noxian Diplomacy right before Rake returns just to combo this a little bit faster. Of course, if we took Thunderlord's Decree as well, this damage will be procced in that combo. For our all-in combo, we first activate our Yumu's Ghost Blade for that movement speed. Then we want to hop onto the target with Noxian Diplomacy and hit the enemy with both parts of our Rake. Then stealth with your Shadow Assault on top of the enemy and activate your Ravenous Hydra to immediately end that and hit them with the second part of Shadow Assault as well. Of course, if you didn't take a Ravenous Hydra in your build, then skip that part of that combo. Then, finally, auto attack once to apply the Blade's End, and keep in mind you can ignite as well if you do need it for that kill. If you were going for a sneakier kill, you could activate your ultimate right after your Yumu's Ghost Blade so you could enter a lane stealth. In the early game, you're decent in lane phase since you do get a pretty big power spike at level 2. You'll want to try to harass the enemy as much as you can with your lane harassment combo. You can also just poke with your rake as well, but try not to push the lane, sweep it through the enemy champion, not through an entire minion wave. You are very gankable until level 6, so make sure you ward both sides of the mid lane with your trinket wards and pay attention to your damn minimap. If you see an enemy lane that's very pushed, you can go for a quick roam with your Assassin's Path. Your roams become a lot better at level 6, but you don't have to wait for 6 just to get a kill from a roam. In the mid game, Talon does get a lot stronger. At this point, you want to use your rake to keep the lane pushed as much as you can and then look to roam. Even if you're not getting off successful ganks, the enemy will usually end up playing a lot more passively and the lane will be a lot easier for your team. When you get there, blow up either a really squishy target or whoever is just out of position. You deal a ton of damage in the mid game and people will drop instantly. Remember that you can use your Shadow Assault to go into the lane stealth for an even stronger gank. When you combine it with your Yumu's Ghost Blade for all of that speed, it's very devastating. Your late game is pretty decent as well, but it's not the best out there. You're a very squishy champion and you'll need to look for squishies that are isolated or try to flank the enemy team in teamfights. You do also make a pretty decent split pusher. If you're way ahead, then there shouldn't be anybody on the enemy team that can 1v1 you, so pressure a side lane. Get some deep wards, and if they rotate for you, you can easily escape with your kit. If they send only one person, well then you can just simply delete them with your Yumu's Ghost Blade and Shadow Assault. In a full-blown team fight, try to keep track of their cooldowns. Don't just jump in at the start because you'll be CC'd and die really, really quick. Now we're going to look at 3 of your hardest matchups, and keep in mind there are many more than this and there's a lot of skill matchups as well, but these are 3 that leave little room for counterplay. Against Karma, you're going to need to stay behind minions so you don't get poked all day long and you want to spend the majority of your time roaming. She's then able to deal with your poke rather easily by using her Inspire, and she can dish out a ton of damage and also root you. If she does happen to waste her Inner Flame, then it's time to go trade damage. Anivia is then extremely hard and there's not much you can do to win lane. Try your best to dodge her Flash Frost and then look to trade damage. Try to deal with her crazy push with your Rake and then look to roam, but keep in mind she does push incredibly fast with her Glacial Storm. Jace then deals a ton of damage with his combos and he can do 50% of your health with a full combo and Ignite at level 3, so be very careful. If you are able to get off some successful roams, it can become a rather easy matchup as you can usually 100 to 0 him if you are snowballing. But now let's finish off this guide with our item build. For our start, we'll either want to start with Longsword, Health Potions, and a Warding Totem, or Corrupting Potion and a Warding Totem. If we need a lot of sustain, go for that Corrupting, but if not, go for that Longsword. For our core build, we go for Yumu's, a Duskblade, and the Black Cleaver. Even though Yumu's does not give attack speed when activated anymore, it is still insanely strong on Talon because he really relies on that movement speed. Duskblade is then still a very strong item because of the passive Night Stalker and the new passive Blackout, which even allows you to remove enemy wards when you are spotted. Black Cleaver is still the same, but we really want it because it does give 20% CDR, and of course removing armor is an amazing thing as well. Now if you were against a squishier team, you could get the Trinity Force instead of the Black Cleaver. It still gives 20% CDR, which is the main reason we get the Black Cleaver, but it increases damage as well. For our boot options, we can get Boots of Mobility for faster roams, Boots of Swiftness just for faster speed all around, Ionian Boots for 10% CDR, or Merc Treads if we're against high AP or CC teams. For our item pool, we first have Ravenous Hydra. It's still a very strong item on Talon, and I usually pick it up because the lifesteal is nice as well. Of course, the main reason though is that Activate, which increases your burst by just a little bit more. Then for full-on armor penetration, we could get the LDR or the Mortal Reminder if we do need Grievous Wounds. If you didn't want to go for a Ravenous Hydra, then Death's Dance is a great way to get 10% more CDR and that much needed lifesteal. Maw, like always, is a great way to increase your damage, yet have some magic resist and that awesome shield that procs when you get too low. Then Guardian Angel, fantastic late game item to come back to life, and then of course we got the new item. Now Edge of Night is a pretty damn solid item. It does give you some lethality, which works really nice with the Duskblade. The best part though is of course Veil. You can channel for 1.5 seconds, and you can even move during this duration to grant a spell shield for 10 seconds, which is amazing against a lot of the mid laners out there. This is now one of our best defensive pickups. But for our full damage full build, we take our core, add Ionian Boots, and then a Ravenous Hydra for adding more damage into our combos, and the LDR for getting through armor. If we were against a high AP team with some CCs, then instead we would get the Merc Treads, add the Maw, and a Guardian Angel. Both are great builds, and I like to go for full damage when I can, but sometimes you just can't afford to. But that, ladies and gentlemen, covers everything I've got on the reworked mid lane Talon guide. For more of our content, you can check out the video description for all of our social media links, and make sure you follow us on Twitter, where you can enter our Riot Point giveaways and also vote on the next champion to come out. As of right now, we got LeBlanc and Kha'Zix tied at 32%, so make sure you head over to Twitter and vote for the champion you want to see next. But anyways, thank you guys a ton for watching the guide. I hope you guys did enjoy it and found it very informative, and I will see you guys in the next guide. Peace.
So aren't you glad to meet me? I think you should, I'll be glad to meet me. If I were you, aren't you glad to meet me? I think you should. I make a real good song out of you, time and ticking slow. Yes, you're overdue, aren't you glad to meet me?